The Dark Days War, or the Dark Days Rebellion, was the name of a multi-sided civil conflict fought between the Republic of Panem and various district forces that opposed the Capitolian government. To enforce unity on the continent following the quietus, the Republic of Panem modeled its government after the Republic of Rome and the former United States by adopting their language and customs. The political structure was split up into three branches of government: the executive branch, controlled by the president, the legislative branch, occupied by the Senate, and the judicial branch, overseen by a council of life-appointed justices known as the Constant. Unlike the democracies that preceded Panem, the Republic only allowed citizens born in the capital or the wealthiest citizens in the districts to participate in government. Those included in this limited democracy were members of the capital's great houses and the common assemblies of the districts. The great houses were 14 wealthy families whose lineage and riches could be traced back to the old provinces before the conquest. In contrast, they were rivaled by the common assemblies of the districts, propertied upstarts and minted families who made their wealth through trade in their district's economy. During this time, the districts operated as independent states who acknowledged the greater political authority of the capital. Mayors led them, individuals elected by the common assemblies of the districts, and each was allowed to govern as they saw fit. Furthermore, the districts were allowed to engage in their economies unrestricted by industry and free to trade with each other as they pleased. The war allegedly originated from the rivalry of Panem's leading political factions. Before the war, the Popularis Party, supported by the common assemblies, held control over Panem's legislative powers for 2 decades and advocated for a system of governance that empowered the districts through lax federal oversight. On the other side of the aisle was the Optimates, a faction supported by the great houses who prioritized the interests of the capital by advocating for policies that enriched the ruling elite. Both sides were inconsolable in their views and reveled in each other's political losses over the years. But as a symptom of civil unrest orchestrated by the great houses, the Popularis Party began to suffer sudden and significant losses in Panem-wide elections. They would lose control of the Senate chamber and judicial palace to the Optimates Party in 2261, while narrowly holding on to the powers of the presidency. With the majority in the Senate, the Optimates sought to consolidate power in favor of the great houses. They first imposed higher taxes on inter-district commerce before rolling back access to public goods. In addition, they attempted to politically isolate the districts by undermining their meager government through culture wars and economic sanctions. After a decade of compliance, it was decided that something must be done. One morning, violence would break out in the capital Senate, with senators from District 13, upset over a passing bill that diminished their district's judicial authority, attacking a group of Optimate senators and killing several. They were arrested and imprisoned, their positions stripped, and District 13 effectively left without Senate representation. The violence caused outrage, and the situation escalated when District 13's mayor, Galerius Nero, in cooperation with Districts 3, 5, and 6, worked to expand their nuclear arsenal into one that could rival the capital's. The project would remain a secret for over a year, but would be discovered during an undercover operation, with news eventually reaching President Ravenstill. By then, 12 nuclear warheads have been created, each symbolically named after the conquered provinces of old: Lucretia, Petra, Scientia, Biscatio, Potentia, Tessera, Ronchus, Frumentum, Jumentum, Rustius, and Mius. On March 23, 2263, Mayor Nero issued 2 immediate demands from the capital: the unconditional pardon and freedom of his district's imprisoned senators, and the immediate succession of District 13 from the Republic of Panem. Failure to comply would result in a nuclear strike against the capital and territories loyal to it. The great houses and leaders of the Optimates Party urged President Ravenstill not to appease her demands. He would ultimately free the senators and open negotiations to resolve all concerns privately. However, General Nero rejected all diplomacy attempts, and District 13 became independent from the Republic by order of the President. Nationwide unrest would soon follow District 13's independence as outcries of secession echoed in the neighboring districts of 3, 8, and 10. Whispers of Panem's dissolution had already been underway before open declarations of independence would run rampant in all corners of the country. It wasn't until July 4, 2263 that war broke out with the bombings of government buildings in various districts. Driven to rebellion by increasing taxes, lack of state autonomy, and a perception of growing capital decadence, 7 districts succeeded overnight and rebelled. At the forefront of the war was the former District 13, reappearing to proclaim itself the leader of the rebellion and officially declaring war on the Republic of Panem as a whole. District 1 and 2 initially supported the capital, with the former defecting to the rebels before District 9 eventually defected to the capital. Those not on their side had joined District 13, with the lone District 4 claiming neutrality, albeit supplying the capital with resources to seize the ports of other coastline districts. At the command of the President's Minister of Defense, the capital prioritized seizing the districts along the east coast to cut off District 13's supply lines. Armies marched and battled in deadly trenches as most of the war was being fought in the open air. Fighter jets lit up the nights, firing into each other, crashing to the ground, and turning the sky to smoke and burning cities to dust. A combination of misguided leadership, unreliable technology, and a drain on resources would bring the rebellion to a swift, jarring stalemate by the 4th year. District by district, the rebels began to surrender their cities, unable to keep up the war effort and fearing nuclear destruction if they did. In response, General Nero issued an aerial bombardment against the capital city as Districts 10 and 13 continued the rebellion, unrelenting in the spirit of war. The bombardment had been so sudden that it cut off all communication with the president and resulted in tragedy for the capital. President Ravenstill, who was socially distant and paranoid by this point, took his own life in the bunker beneath the presidential palace. It was said that the fighting had taken its toll on the president's mind, and he lost all hope of victory as the city burned. But come morning, the Minister of Information, Casca Highbottom, the last of the president's most trusted ministers, would reluctantly become the country's interim president and end the war for his venerated mentor and dearly departed friend. On June 9, 2268, the capital carpet-bombed what remained above District 13, effectively destroying the district and turning it into an irradiated wasteland. Soon after, District 10 officially surrendered, and so came an end to the 5-year rebellion that had destroyed so much and killed so many. Broken and demoralized, the destruction of 13th capital signaled the war's end and a new Panem's beginning. With the last rebel stronghold subjugated, the rebel forces dissolved. Those still alive attempted to flee the country and were hunted down or brought to the capital to await trial and execution. What remained of the 12 surviving districts in their weakened capital was a state of immense turmoil. As punishment for their role in sparking the rebellion, President Highbottom suspended the Senate chamber and all its legislative processes, disenfranchising the great houses and making him the de facto ruler of Panem indefinitely. However, his answer for the districts would come from a proposal submitted by Dr. Faunus Lucio, his newly appointed Minister of Internal Affairs. The Treaty of Treason, signed June 17, 2268, accepted the official surrender of the 12 districts of Panem and dictated new laws that would govern them. Of these laws, a new policing force was developed entitled the Peacekeepers. These soldiers, volunteers from District 2's militia program, would take up residence in the 12 districts and ensure that no group ever grew powerful enough to mount an offensive against the capital again. But those terms of surrender paled in comparison to the horrors of Article 13. In penance for their uprising, each district shall offer up a male and a female between the ages of 12 and 18 at a public reaping. These tributes shall be delivered to the custody of the capital and then transferred into a public arena where they will fight to the death until a lone victor remains. Henceforth and forevermore, this pageant shall be known as the Hunger Games.